In today's video, let's talk about how to catch your kid if they're learning how to pitch. So if you're a baseball parent and your kid is interested in being a pitcher and they really want to practice, it can be really difficult to figure out how can I do this safely if you don't have a baseball background yourself. I went through this with my dad. My dad was not a baseball person, but he faithfully went in the backyard with me, and it was fun seeing that progression. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And also, me as a pitching instructor, I have done thousands of pitching lessons, and in many of them, I was getting down and obviously catching either half speed, 3/4 speed, or full speed bullpens where kids are throwing their absolute hardest. They're throwing all three pitches. I always try to get a catcher when I could, but lots of times I just need to catch the lessons. So I have gotten down there without gear on many, many times, and somehow I've come out unscathed. So let me give you some tips on how to catch your kid if they're learning how to pitch. All right, first order of business, when you're catching your kid wants to be a pitcher, and that's wonderful. You're going to spend quality time, and you're going to be there for them. What kind of gloves should you use? Number one, use what you have. If you want to get a catcher's mitt, invest in a catcher's mitt. It is a very worthwhile investment. You can find one used on Facebook Marketplace. Now, if you have a regular glove, that's fine too. I would just get a little bigger model if you have. The only major suggestion is don't use a piece of crap glove. If your glove is some junky thing that you have that's just not super capable, if your kid's going to be throwing hard to you, and especially as they get a little older, start throwing breaking pitches, invest in a quality tool that's going to make it easier for you, have more padding, it'll stop the ball better. The last thing you want is it to nick off and hit you in the face or something like that. So start light. You don't have to blow out your budget right away, but if you do want to upgrade to a catcher's mitt eventually, I think you'll be really happy that you did. And as far as mom or dad gloves go, this is a Shoeless Joe model. It's a very cool, like vintage, like a modern take on a vintage baseball glove. It's very cool. I'll link to this in the description below if you're looking for a dad glove with some good Americana vibes. All right, so I'm sitting on this little camp stool that I have. I love this little thing. Bring it with me every time I film videos so I can take a little breather and sit. Now, a lot of parents will catch sitting on a ball bucket or on a camp stool or a camp chair like this. Is that a good idea? In general, I'd say it's complicated. Obviously, I don't know your physicality level, your fitness level. Can you be in a squat for very long? If you have to be on a bucket or a camp stool, I totally get it. Do what you need to do to be out there for your kid, to show up for them, right? What I will say about buckets and stools when you're catching a pitcher is it makes it very difficult for you to bail. So if you're on a bucket or a stool, if I was catching and there's a breaking ball in the dirt, it's like, oh man, I got to get out of here. It's really hard to just leap up and get out of the way. So if you're going to do this, it's basically a necessity to have shin guards on at least. And you've got to be real good about protecting yourself if you really can't leap out of there fast enough. So especially if your son or daughter throws pretty hard, this is probably not going to be a super safe situation. Now, I've seen parents do different things, like they learn how to protect themselves while sitting on a bucket, and you could certainly work through that, but I think shin guards are a must, and if you can, I recommend not using a bucket. All right, let's talk about your catching stance when you're catching your kid pitching. So this is a full squat. This is probably the most comfortable. It will burn through the shins and through your ankles and through your calves after a while, so every once in a while you have to stand up, shake the blood out. I mean, that just comes with the territory. This is by far the easiest way to get down and sort of chill. You're using less muscular effort. However, if you try to catch like this and your kid is wild, or if they're throwing breaking balls, curveballs, sliders, sweepers, whatever, it is much harder to leap out of the way from the full squat than it is from second position. So that's the first thing. Just know that if you want to get in a full squat, it's going to be comfier, it's going to be a little easier, but it's probably not going to be the right one if, again, there's going to be a lot of balls in the dirt. If they're throwing fastballs and they're pretty, they're locating pretty well and they're not bouncing stuff, and you feel like, okay, their first 20 are going to be fastballs and I feel comfortable that they're not going to bounce any, this is probably totally fine. You can kind of catch your breath that way. But if then they're going to go, okay, one fastball, two curveballs, dad or mom. Now I'm probably going to get in second position. Second position is much safer, but it's also much more of a workout. So second position is where your feet are wider, and this is literally the position that catchers use in games to throw runners out. I'm wider, and I've got to get my butt down, but it's very easy because I'm in this athletic squat position where now if it's in the dirt, I can just leap away and protect myself. So anytime I'm catching a high school pitcher and who I know doesn't have great command, or they're throwing curveballs, if a curveball's coming or a slider's coming, Coach Dan is in second position and he's ready to bail at a moment's notice. Now, let me talk about bailing because this is super important, and then we'll get to target after that. it's perfectly fine to angle yourself a little bit. And I will almost always do this. I'll angle myself a little bit. And sometimes you can kind of sink on this knee, and this is a little more like intermediate kind of stance where I can kind of rest a little bit and I can still bail a little bit better. So definitely experiment with what's comfortable for you. But by angling your feet a little bit, it just makes it a little bit easier to bail on that breaking ball. Now you want to know which way you're going. So if your kid is a lefty and their breaking balls go this way, you don't want to angle yourself this way because you're going to want to bail this way. If your kid's a righty and they throw their breaking balls that break this way, that's why we want to angle this way, because now that breaking ball in the dirt, I can bounce out of its way and be okay. Now, the one thing to understand about breaking balls is a right-handed curveball has spin this way. When it hits the ground, it bounces the opposite direction. You'll figure this out in a hurry, but just be aware of it. 12-6 curveballs will bounce pretty straight, but any amount of English, 1-7 or 2-8 break, it will bounce the opposite direction because that's the way the ball's going to hit and then catch the turf and go. With a lefty, the opposite is true. A lefty curveball comes in here, hits, bounces the opposite way. You'll figure that out, but it's good to know. So to summarize, if you're a parent catching your kid, as far as stance goes, this is the most comfortable and easiest because it takes the least muscular effort. This is also the one you're most likely to get hit with because it's harder to hop out of your full squat and bail. Second position, where you're square, is great. This is very athletic, but it takes a lot more muscular effort to get out of the way and bail. Second position, with a little bit of angle, this way for righties, this way for lefties, allows you to quickly get out of the way if they throw it in the dirt. Now let's talk about target, because this is the big thing. This is a common thing with youth pitchers and inexperienced parents catching their kid. You do not want to give them this target. Most people, they'll do this. They'll be in second position, but their butt's too high, or they'll just give this target. This is where, Ken Griffey Jr., I'm going to go old school. If Ken Griffey Jr. is in the home run derby, he wants his batting practice pitcher to throw right here. This is a home run pitch. You're giving a belt high target most of the time, and that's not what we want. So when you're giving a target, catching your kid, you need to make sure your glove is facing like this, so your thumb is sort of parallel with the ground if you didn't have a mitt on. And this is at the bottom of my kneecap. This is the standard. As a pitcher, we always want to throw any fastball at the bottom of the strike zone, the bottom border right at the kneecap. Anytime we elevate or we go under the hands, those are intentional balls. But we never intentionally throw a strike that's belt high because that's an easy to hit fastball. So anytime we're throwing fastballs, our goal is if it's outside corner, it's outside corner at the kneecap. If it were just setting up down the middle just to get a strike, it's down the middle at the kneecap. Over on this side, at the kneecap. So just understand that to give your kid a good target to learn for them to throw the ball downhill, which is a very important skill, every target you give them, thumb parallel with the ground, at the kneecap, at the bottom border of the strike zone. Very, very important. Don't give them home run targets when you're catching them. All right, so let's talk about gear. Should you invest in catcher's gear if you're a baseball parent catching your kid? You should invest in whatever is going to make you feel comfortable and safe. I just want to put that out there, and then I'll give you my recommendations about what is necessary and what's not. Do I think you need to put on full gear, chest protector, mask, and shin guards, and a cup? Not really. I think the main skills you need to learn are how to bail when it's in the dirt, because you're not a baseball catcher. You're not a high school catcher. You're not a college catcher. It's not your job. Your job is to catch the strikes they throw for you. And if it's in the dirt, it's your job just to be safe and get out of the way. So make sure you know that. You're not there to block. You're not there to be a tough guy. Just get out of the way. And for me, that means, curveball in the dirt, I'm just trying to pick it and I'm trying to bail. I'm just trying to get out of the way. If you don't like that as a pitcher, too bad. I would use shin guards only. When I'm catching high school pitchers, kids throwing 75 to 85 or 90 miles per hour, I would have shin guards on because sometimes it's so fast that even if I bail, sometimes one will catch me right there and it hurts real bad. But if you have shin guards on, if that last leg trails and you don't get out of the way just quick enough, the shin guard is going to make it feel like nothing. So shin guards are quite good. They're the padding is amazing. So I highly recommend shin guards if your kid throws harder or you don't trust yourself to get out of the way every time. Do you need a cup? Again, personal choice. I'm not going to tell you not to get one. I always just sort of trusted myself that if the ball's down, I can get my body out of there and go. If you have a plate with a lip on it, you're gonna get a lot of unpredictable hops. This is very, very dangerous, having a plate with a lip. So let me show you the difference between these two plates. So this one is thicker and it has a lip. You can see it's about maybe a ½ inch or an inch. It's hard to tell exactly how thick this is. And here's a throwdown plate. So throwdown are these thin, flimsy ones, and this is a more like sturdy home plate. The risk of these ones is significant because with this lip, if a ball hits that, it's gonna take a very unexpected bounce. Because this one is flat, it's really not gonna kick the ball up into the air nearly as much. So if you need to buy a home plate, I highly suggest you go with the cheaper, flimsy throwdown version that's very, very thin, because now you're not gonna get extra kickback if a ball bounces off the plate. So if the place you catch has a lip for some reason and you can't avoid it, or say it's like natural dirt and now it could hit a low spot and hop up, now you're at a lot more risk. So you have to understand how good is the turf. Turf is by far the best, where it's just gonna take pretty clean hops. But if you have a lip on your plate, or you have a hole in the dirt because you're catching your kid at a municipal field, that thing, as you're trying to bail, it could hit, come up, knock a couple of teeth out, and you have a $10,000 dentistry bill. So you have to understand of like how chaotic is the environment, what is the likelihood of a bad hop, and then make an informed decision. Chest protectors are probably the least important. It's pretty easy to get your center of mass out of the way, but if you're running and a ball takes a weird hop, the mask can definitely save you, and I've definitely worn a mask with harder throwing pitchers, especially ones that are pretty wild. And I've definitely worn shin guards. So I don't think you need a full set of gear, but if your kid's younger, starting with shin guards, I think is a good investment. You buy them once, you buy adult size, you have them for the rest of your life. So it's not a bad investment. You can also find them very cheap on Facebook Marketplace, etc. $30 for a set of shins that a kid, doesn't play baseball anymore after his high school career, and now they're yours, whatever. And a mask can definitely be valuable if you don't trust yourself. Your kid's throwing harder. They have some interesting break or some unpredictable break at times, or you're expecting bad bounces. But overall, I don't think you need full gear, but you should make the decision that's right for you, because obviously we know here in the US, medical care is expensive. My last piece of advice here for parents who want to catch their son or daughter who loves pitching is know your limits. You're probably going to have to bow out at some point. My dad, he bowed out from catching me, and he did put on full gear, and he built me a mound in the backyard. It was a really special quality time that we spent together. My dad bowed out of catching me at about 14 or 15. When I was 14, I threw like in the low 80s. I threw very hard as a 14-year-old. So at that point, he was like, I just can't do this. I also had a curveball from hell. So my dad was just not cut out to do that. And he's like, look, I can't catch anymore. I'll long toss with you. We can play catch. We can do lower speed, but like full speed, Dan Blewett at 14, 15, he's like, I can't do it. We got to find you another catcher. And that's totally fine. So know your limits, parents. You can support your kids in other ways. You can buy a pitching like a 9-pocket screen they can throw into that in a pinch, all those sort of things. But know your limits and don't get yourself hurt. And with that, I'll share one more story. I was in spring training with the Camden River Sharks, which was my 4th season of pro baseball, and I was throwing a cutter. And in spring training, my coaching staff had invited 2 catchers from a local junior college to help get us warm, because everyone's busy doing a lot of things. So we had an extra couple bullpen catchers on hand to get our pitchers, the work that they needed. And I was going in I had an inning in an exhibition game, and one of the junior college catchers was throwing with me, and he had never seen like pitchers like us before. Like I threw 92 to 94, and I was working on a cutter, and it was pretty good sometimes, and it was like 88 or 89 miles per hour. And this kid had never seen an 89 mile per hour cut fastball before. And as I was getting ready to go in the game, I threw a really good one, and it caught him and it broke his thumb. So as I mentioned limits, you just have to know your limits, and sometimes you won't know them until you maybe get hurt, or you're like, oh, I'm getting a little squirrely. Sinkers that are really hard can be really tough. Catchers can break their thumbs on sinkers down here sometimes. And I broke a kid's thumb with a cutter. So you have to be really careful, know your limits. It doesn't make you a bad parent. Sometimes you just have to tap out. I'm gonna shake my legs out for this outro. So thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful. This is one of those sort of like under the radar topics that occurred to me recently that I think this could help some people who don't necessarily have a baseball background, but really want to get out there with their kid, which is a wonderful thing to do. So Give yourself a pat on the back if you're willing to get down and catch your kid as they learn to pitch. It's a wonderful thing. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you here in the next video.